The galaxy had seen many wars, but few moments were remembered like the Battle of Erath Prime. Entire fleets had fallen, worlds had burned, and the Galactic Union had almost lost hope. Yet in the middle of that chaos, a single human pilot changed everything. His name was Ryan. When alien soldiers told stories about courage, they spoke of Ryan. They said he fought like a storm, fearless and unbreakable. He was the kind of hero who never surrendered even when all odds stood against him. Many had called him reckless, others had called him mad, but in the end, every species agreed on one truth. The human spirit was something rare. It refused to break. After the war ended, Ryan became a legend across the stars. His face appeared on banners. His name echoed in songs, and his actions were studied in academies. To humans, he was a soldier who had done his duty. To aliens, he was something more, a mystery they wanted to understand. Among those who admired Ryan was Tira, a young alien from the planet Velnar. Her people had been one of the many races saved by the human pilot. She had watched the battle recordings countless times. The way he moved through fire and debris, the way he pushed his ship beyond its limits, and the way he never gave up. All of it had fascinated her. Tira's skin had a soft silver shade that shimmered under light. Her wide golden eyes showed both innocence and curiosity. She was still learning about the world beyond her home planet. When she joined the Galactic Union Academy, she had only one dream: to meet Ryan, the man who had saved her world. Every night, when others slept, she read reports about humans. She studied their history, their wars, their courage, and their mistakes. She learned how they had risen from a small planet to become one of the most respected and feared species in the galaxy. Other races might have stronger bodies or sharper minds, but humans had something no one could copy: the will to fight on even when there was no hope left. The more Tira read, the more curious she became. To her, humans were strange. They laughed during danger. They cried during peace, and they cared deeply about things others would have ignored. Some species said humans were unpredictable, but Tira believed there was something beautiful about that. She believed that maybe, somewhere inside that unpredictability, there was the secret behind their strength. When she learned that Ryan had been stationed aboard the Union flagship Sol Meridian, Tira could hardly believe her luck. The Sol Meridian was a massive ship, home to thousands of officers, pilots, and engineers. It carried diplomats and scientists, and it was considered one of the safest vessels in the fleet. Ryan had been assigned there as a senior pilot and tactical advisor. From that day, Tira could think of nothing else. She wanted to see the human hero with her own eyes. She wanted to speak to him, to ask him what gave humans the power to stand when others fell. But there was one problem. Ordinary officers were not allowed near high-ranking pilots without permission. Meeting Ryan would require a miracle. Still, Tira was not the kind to give up easily. Every time she passed the hangar where his ship, the Valor Wing, rested, she slowed her steps. The sleek human-designed fighter looked alive, as if it shared the same stubborn spirit as its pilot. Tira would often stand there for minutes pretending to check her datapad, while secretly hoping to catch a glimpse of Ryan. She heard stories about him from others, too. Some said he was quiet, others said he was serious. There were even rumors that he rarely spoke to anyone outside of duty. But one engineer told her that Ryan was respectful to everyone, no matter their species or rank. That small detail filled Tira with admiration. Days turned into weeks, and her curiosity only grew stronger. She wanted to thank him for saving Velnar. She wanted to ask him what it felt like to fight when the sky was falling apart. But how could she do that? She was just a trainee communication officer. Someone like her had no reason to stand in front of a galactic hero. One evening, while she was helping organize communication records, she came across a ship security schedule. Her heart started to beat faster when she noticed something. The maintenance crew that cleaned the pilot's quarters would have access to Ryan's section later that week. An idea formed in her mind. It was dangerous and foolish, but it was also her only chance. If she joined that crew, she might be able to sneak into his quarters for a few minutes. She would not steal or harm anything. She only wanted to see the person who had inspired her since childhood. That night, she could not sleep. Her 3 hearts thumped softly as she stared at the ceiling of her cabin. She imagined standing before Ryan, hearing his voice, maybe even asking him how he had stayed calm during battle. She told herself it would only be a short visit. She would enter quietly, look around, and leave before anyone noticed. The next morning, she began to plan. She memorized the maintenance route, studied security patrol times, and even borrowed a standard-issue cleaning drone from the supply deck. The drone's presence would help her blend in if anyone passed by. As the day arrived, Tira's hands trembled slightly. She wore a simple gray uniform, tied her long white hair, and took a deep breath before leaving her cabin. The corridors of the Sol Meridian were wide and bright, filled with the hum of power conduits and the distant sound of engines. Every step echoed in her mind as a reminder that what she was doing could end her career before it even started. Still, she walked forward. The deeper she went, the fewer people she saw. The pilot quarters were located in a restricted section near the hangar. Only authorized personnel were allowed inside. Tira moved slowly, holding a data pad and pretending to be checking maintenance logs. Whenever she saw someone approaching, she turned a corner or waited behind a supply unit. Finally, she reached a door marked with a name she knew by heart: Commander Ryan Vale, Flight Division. The letters were simple and neat, like the man himself. She stood there for a moment, her breath quick and nervous, her mind filled with questions. What if he was inside? What if he called security? What if she ruined everything? But another thought rose above her fear. If she turned back now, she might never get another chance. She tapped the control panel. The door remained locked. She bit her lip, then carefully entered a small override code that she had learned during her communication training. The door light blinked green. As it slid open, warm light spilled out. Inside, the room was neat and quiet. A folded uniform rested on the bed. A data pad sat on the table, and a small hologram of a blue planet spun slowly in the corner. Everything was clean and organized. The air smelled faintly of metal and polish. Tira stepped in quietly. She looked around, feeling a mix of awe and fear. This was where the hero lived. There were no trophies, no decorations, no signs of pride, just the tools of a soldier. It was humbling. Her gaze landed on the flight armor, placed carefully on a stand. It was scratched and scarred, yet perfectly maintained. She reached out, her hand hovering just inches from it. She wanted to touch the armor that had saved her world, but she hesitated. It felt wrong to disturb it. She whispered softly to herself, "Thank you." Then a voice came from behind her. "You're not supposed to be here." Tira froze. Slowly, she turned around. Ryan stood at the door, tall and calm, his uniform half unzipped after training. His sharp gray eyes studied her with quiet focus. There was no anger in his face, only curiosity. Tira's mind went blank. Every word she had practiced vanished. She wanted to explain, to apologize, to say something, but her voice refused to come out. Ryan walked a few steps closer, his tone still calm. "You are from the communication division, right?" She nodded quickly, her heart racing. He crossed his arms. "You took a risk coming here. Most people would have been caught before reaching this door." Tira lowered her head, ashamed. "I only wanted to see the man who saved my world." There was silence for a moment. Then Rion sighed softly and said, "Next time, try asking first." Tira looked up, surprised. His voice was not harsh, not cold. It was almost kind. She realized that the human hero she had imagined was not made of stone or fire. He was real, and he was far more patient than she had expected. Her journey had only begun. Tira stood frozen as Ryan looked at her. The silence inside the small room felt heavy. She could hear her own breathing, and the soft hum of the ship's engines beneath the floor. She wanted to explain why she had come, but her voice refused to form words. Ryan took a slow step toward her, his boots making a faint sound on the metal floor. His eyes were calm, not angry. He studied her uniform, then her trembling hands. "You are new to the Sol Meridian," he said. "I remember seeing your name in the crew list a few days ago." "Tira of Velnar, communication trainee." She nodded quickly. "Yes, Commander." Yes, sir." Ryan tilted his head slightly, still calm. "You are far from your assigned area. What are you doing here?" The question was simple, yet it made her feel like the walls were closing in. She took a deep breath and spoke, her voice low but steady. "I wanted to meet you. You saved my world during the Battle of Irath Prime. My people survived because of what you did. I wanted to see the person behind the story." Rion's expression did not change, but his eyes softened. He leaned slightly against the table and crossed his arms. "You risked your position and your record for that?" Tira looked down at the floor. "I know it was wrong, but I had to. I only wanted to thank you." For a long moment, Ryan said nothing. The silence stretched between them until she could barely stand it. Finally, he spoke again, his voice quiet. Most people prefer to send a message rather than break into a restricted area. That made Tira's face turn a deep shade of silver blue, a sign of embarrassment among her kind. I thought you would not answer. You are famous. You are always busy. Ryan's mouth curved slightly, almost a smile. You might be surprised. Fame does not fill the hours as much as people think. He motioned to a chair by the small desk. Sit. Since you are already here, we might as well talk before I decide what to do next. Tira hesitated but obeyed. She sat with her back straight, hands folded tightly in her lap. Ryan walked to the food unit, pressed a few buttons, and brought out 2 drink packs. He offered one to her. She took it carefully. Thank you, Commander. Just Ryan, he said. I am not on duty right now. He sat across from her, resting his arms on his knees. So tell me, Tira of Velnar, what do you really want to know? Tira looked at the drink pack in her hands. It was warm. She tried to find the courage to speak. I want to understand what makes humans so strong. During the battle, your ship was damaged, yet you kept fighting. When everyone else was retreating, you stayed. How did you do that? Ryan's gaze drifted toward the armor stand near the wall. The scratches on the metal caught the light. Because someone had to, he said softly. It was not strength. It was duty. My people were in danger, and so were yours. I could not run. Tira frowned slightly, but others ran. Other pilots left when things became impossible. Why not you? Ryan looked back at her. His eyes were steady, filled with something she could not fully read. Because humans have a strange rule. We do not like losing when someone else depends on us. Sometimes that makes us foolish, but it also makes us keep going when we should not. Tira listened carefully. The way he spoke was calm, almost humble. There was no pride in his words. He did not act like a legend or a hero. He spoke like someone who had seen too much and carried it quietly. You were not afraid? She asked. Ryan gave a small laugh, not loud but real. Of course I was afraid. Everyone is afraid in battle. The trick is not to let it control you. You move forward anyway. You act even when your hands shake. Tira blinked. So fear does not stop humans? It tries to, Ryan said. But fear can be a teacher too. It reminds you what matters. She nodded slowly, trying to understand. On Velnar, we are taught to avoid fear. To stay calm always. That is good for peace, Ryan said. But in war, calm can turn into hesitation. Sometimes you need the fire to survive. For a while, they both sat in silence. Tira felt the tension fade. She had imagined meeting a giant, a loud and fearless warrior, but instead she had met someone quiet, thoughtful, and human in every way. Ryan broke the silence first. Tell me about Velnar. I only saw it from orbit during the war. Tira smiled for the first time. It is green and full of rivers. The sky glows soft blue during night. After the battle, our people rebuilt the cities you saved. We have schools again. The young learn about the Alliance and about you. Ryan raised an eyebrow. About me? Yes, Tira said proudly. We study your tactics. Children write songs about your ship. They call you the Guardian of the Void. He sighed quietly. I hope they remember more than one name. I was not the only one who fought that day. They remember, Tira said. But you became the face of hope. Ryan leaned back in his chair. Hope is heavy. It sounds bright until you have to carry it. She tilted her head. You sound tired of being a hero. He looked at her with a small smile. No one is born a hero. It is just a word people use after the danger has passed. Tira thought about that. The idea made her respect him even more. He was not proud of the title, but he accepted the burden that came with it. Suddenly, the door alert beeped. Ryan stood up and pressed the control. A digital voice announced, training session in Hangar Bay 3 in 10 minutes. He turned off the alert and looked at Tira. Duty calls. Tira quickly stood as well. I am sorry for coming here without permission. I will report myself if you wish. Ryan shook his head. No need, you came with respect, not harm. But next time request access properly. Rules exist for a reason, she nodded firmly. Yes, Rion, I promise. He picked up his flight gloves from the table. Walk with me. I will drop you at the communication deck. They left the quarters together. The corridor outside was quiet except for the distant thrum of the engines. As they walked, a few crew members saluted Ryan, who responded with a nod each time. His reputation followed him everywhere. Yet he walked with the ease of someone used to being part of the crew rather than above it. Tira walked beside him, trying to match his pace. She noticed the faint scars on his hands and the way his uniform sleeves were slightly worn at the edges. He did not act like a decorated hero. He acted like a soldier who still had work to do. When they reached the intersection leading to her division, Ryan stopped. Tira, you have curiosity. That is a good thing. Curiosity is how new ideas are born. But it needs direction. Do not waste it on breaking rules. Use it to learn. Tira nodded quickly. I will remember that. Ryan smiled faintly. Good. Maybe one day you will be the one others look up to. She opened her mouth to reply, but he was already walking away toward the hangar bay. She watched him go until he disappeared around a corner. As she stood there, she felt a strange mix of emotions. She was relieved that he had not punished her, grateful that he had spoken to her kindly and inspired by what he had said. The stories she had heard about humans spoke of bravery, but now she understood that bravery was not just in battle. It was in how they faced life itself. Later that night, Tira sat in her cabin thinking about the meeting. She replayed every moment in her mind, every word he had said. She realized that Ryan's calm strength came from something deeper than skill. It came from a belief that doing the right thing mattered more than surviving. She wanted to be like that. She wanted to be someone who stood firm no matter how hard things became. The next day, she requested a transfer to the training division, where she could assist pilots with communication systems. Her supervisor was surprised but approved the request. When Ryan heard about it a few days later, he said nothing, but a small smile crossed his face. He knew exactly why she had done it. Tira had crossed a line when she entered his quarters, but she had also crossed another kind of line, the one between admiration and understanding. She no longer saw Ryan as a distant hero carved from light. She saw him as a person, flawed but strong, carrying a human spirit that others could learn from. And for the first time since the war, Ryan felt that maybe his story was still being written. After her first meeting with Ryan, Tira felt a strange mix of emotions. She was nervous, excited, and inspired all at once. For days, she replayed the conversation in her mind. His calm voice, his thoughtful words, and the small way he had smiled stayed with her. She returned to her duties in the communication division, but her thoughts were often on him. Every time she passed near the hangar, she would glance at the Valor wing gleaming under the soft lights. It was a simple ship, but it carried stories of courage that stretched across the galaxy. Tira wondered how such strength could belong to one human being. One morning, an urgent message arrived at the Sol Meridian. A convoy of supply ships was under attack near the outer rim of the Union sector. Pirates had struck quickly, and the convoy's defense systems were struggling. Alarms rang through the corridors as crew members rushed to stations. Ryan, already suited in his flight uniform, moved with practiced speed. He checked his comm panel and confirmed the details. Pirates are attacking the eastern convoy, he said. We move in 5 minutes. Tira, curious and concerned, asked one of the officers if she could accompany the mission from the control deck. Her request was unusual, but the officer recognized her as part of the communication team. She was allowed to observe. As the fighter launch bay opened, Ryan approached the Valor wing. He gave quick instructions to his team. Stay close. Cover each other. Keep the convoy safe. Remember, they are carrying essential supplies. Tira watched, captivated. Ryan moved like a conductor of an orchestra. Every gesture, every command was precise, but there was no arrogance in his voice. It was focus and care combined with experience. The launch bay lights brightened as the fighters slid into position. The ship's engines hummed, then roared as the pilots took off. Tira observed from the control deck, her eyes following every move. In space, chaos erupted almost immediately. Pirates' ships swarmed around the convoy. Their weapons fired bright streaks of energy, and alarms on the control panels flashed constantly. Yet Ryan remained calm. He steered the Valor wing between enemy ships with perfect timing, dodging blasts while directing his team to block attacks. From her observation seat, Tira noticed something extraordinary. Ryan did not rely on advanced targeting systems or speed alone. He anticipated the enemy's movements, thought ahead, and adapted in real time. It was instinct combined with intuition, and it was why humans were so unpredictable in combat. Hours passed, and the fight continued. The pirates had numbers, but they lacked unity. Ryan's leadership kept the convoy intact. The human pilot coordinated the defense without shouting, without panic, and without hesitation. Every decision he made was deliberate yet almost effortless in appearance. Tira's admiration deepened. She realized that humans did not need to be the strongest species to succeed. They relied on courage, determination, and trust in one another. Even when surrounded, they found ways to survive and protect those who could not defend themselves. Eventually, the pirates retreated. Their ship scattered into the darkness, leaving the convoy intact. The control deck erupted in cheers, but Ryan remained composed. He checked that every ship was accounted for, then guided the Valor Wing back to the Sol Meridian. When he returned, he was tired. His uniform was scuffed, and the faint scratches on his armor told the story of the battle. Yet his expression remained calm. Tira expected him to relax or celebrate, but he did neither. Instead, he checked on his team, made sure the convoy's communication systems were restored, and completed the post-battle report. Tira approached him cautiously. "Commander," she said softly, "I saw everything. You were amazing." Ryan glanced at her. "I did what needed to be done. My team performed just as well. Humans do not act alone." Tira felt a little embarrassed. She had imagined him as a lone hero, someone who could fight against the galaxy on his own. But now she saw the truth. Humans could be brave, but they relied on trust and cooperation as much as instinct. "Do you ever get afraid?" she asked. He studied her for a moment. "Of course. Fear is natural. The trick is not to run from it. You feel it, then act anyway. That is what humans do. We are not invincible. We are persistent." Tira thought about that. Persistence was something her people respected, but humans had a way of turning it into art. They never gave up, no matter the cost. They fought for survival, for others, and for ideals that went beyond themselves. "You inspire a lot of people," she said softly. "Even other species. I saw pilots from other worlds watching you in awe." Ryan shook his head lightly. "I hope they do not follow me blindly. Inspiration is only useful if it encourages learning. If people rely on my actions instead of understanding their own abilities, then they will fail." Tira nodded. She understood that true strength was not only about action, but also about responsibility. Humans carried both courage and care in equal measure. That was why they had survived against odds that would have destroyed other species. After a short pause, Ryan added, "Curiosity is important too. Never stop learning. Ask questions, observe, and understand. That is how humans improve." Tira's heart leaped. His advice was simple, yet it contained a deeper meaning. It was not about following a hero blindly. It was about thinking, learning, and applying that knowledge to one's own life. The rest of the day passed with Tira observing him in smaller missions and exercises. Each time she noticed the same calm focus. Ryan did not need to dominate or intimidate. He led by example, by action, and by being prepared to carry responsibility that others avoided. By the end of the day, Tira realized something she had never considered before. Humans were not just fighters or survivors. They were teachers in ways that transcended words. By simply being themselves, by living with courage and persistence, they could show others how to face challenges. That night, Tira returned to her cabin with a new understanding. Her admiration had shifted from obsession to respect. She no longer wanted to merely see the human hero. She wanted to learn from him. She wanted to take his lessons and use them in her own life, in her own people, and in her future duties. She reviewed her notes from the day, detailing his actions, commands, and reactions. Each small choice Ryan made was a lesson in leadership, patience, and bravery. She realized that the stories she had read about humans were only part of the truth. The real strength was in how they carried themselves, how they faced fear, and how they inspired others without seeking recognition. The next morning, she arrived early at the hangar. She wanted to see Ryan again, not to disturb him, but to observe, to learn, and to understand. She found him checking his ship and speaking quietly with his crew. The way he treated each team member with respect and attention impressed her further. As the day went on, she noticed other aliens approaching him with questions. Ryan answered them patiently, never showing frustration. His calm approach allowed even the youngest officers to feel confident around him. Tira realized that humans did not only act with courage in battle, they acted with patience, understanding, and responsibility in daily life as well. During a short break, Ryan looked at her and said, Curiosity suits you. But remember, observation is only half the lesson. Action is the other half. You cannot learn without applying what you see. Tira nodded quickly. She felt inspired. She wanted to take action, to test her skills and to apply the lessons she had observed. For the first time, she truly understood what humans could teach. By the evening, Tira returned to her cabin, exhausted but exhilarated. She thought about the convoy mission, the pirate attack, and Ryan's calm control throughout the chaos. Every detail she had observed reinforced one truth. The human hero was not only courageous in battle, but also wise in how he carried himself. As she lay down to rest, she made a promise to herself. She would train harder, learn more, and use every opportunity to understand the human spirit. She would carry the lessons of Ryan forward, not as a fan who worshipped a hero, but as a student of life and courage. That night, the stars outside her cabin window seemed brighter. She imagined Ryan flying through them, calm and fearless, showing everyone that persistence, courage, and wisdom were the true measures of strength. Tira smiled quietly. Her journey had only begun, and for the first time she felt she was truly following the right path. The next morning, the Sol Meridian's corridors buzzed with energy. Reports from the previous day's pirate attack had spread quickly. Crew members spoke in low voices about Ryan's calm and precise leadership during the mission. Tira walked alongside her peers, but her mind was elsewhere. She thought only of him and the lessons she had witnessed firsthand. She reached the hangar early, her steps quick but careful. The vast bay stretched before her, filled with ships of all sizes. The Valor Wing sat in the center, polished and ready. Ryan was already present, inspecting his fighter with meticulous care. "Good morning, Tira," he said without looking up. His voice was calm even in the midst of activity. "Good morning, Ryan," she replied, keeping her voice steady. "I wanted to observe your team today. I want to learn more." He nodded and gestured toward the deck. "Watch closely but stay safe. Observing is one thing, intervening is another. You will see how humans act in moments of stress, and you may learn more from watching than from speaking." Tira followed his instructions carefully. She took a position at the observation platform overlooking the hangar. From there, she could see every pilot, every mechanic, and every crew member. She noticed how Rion moved among them, issuing instructions not as a boss but as someone who knew each person's strengths and weaknesses. "Watch how he communicates," a senior pilot beside her said quietly. "He doesn't shout orders. He explains. He listens. That is what makes humans different." Tira's eyes followed Ryan as he guided a new recruit in calibrating weapon systems. His tone was patient and his hands moved to demonstrate adjustments instead of simply telling the recruit what to do. Even in minor tasks, there was a lesson in leadership. Hours later, the command console beeped urgently. Another convoy near the outer rim had been detected. Sensor readings showed multiple pirate ships approaching rapidly. Ryan straightened, his eyes narrowing slightly. This was no longer a simulation. "Launch in 10 minutes, he ordered calmly. "Prepare all pilots and defensive systems." Tira's heart raced. She had been present for a simulated drill before, but this was real. The stakes were life and death for hundreds of ships carrying civilians and supplies. She gripped the railing of the observation platform, watching as Ryan's team moved like a single organism under his direction. As the fighters took off, Ryan's voice came through the communication channel. "Stay close. Protect the convoy. Watch each other's backs. Trust your instincts and trust each other." The fleet moved into space and chaos erupted almost immediately. Pirates swarmed from the shadows, firing bright energy beams at the convoy. Tira's eyes widened as she saw Rian maneuvering the Valor Wing with precision and courage. He weaved between enemy ships, intercepting attacks that could have destroyed the supply fleet. Even as alarms rang and blaring lights filled the deck, Ryan's calm voice guided his team. "Focus on the eastern flank. Shield weaker ships first. Watch your vectors." Tira noticed something remarkable. The pirates had superior numbers, yet Ryan's team never panicked. The human pilot seemed to anticipate every move the enemy made. Every command he gave was a lesson in strategy and courage. Hours passed in a tense blur. Ships dodged, fired, and coordinated under Ryan's leadership. Tira observed closely, taking mental notes. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but their unpredictability was paired with awareness, decision-making, and above all, courage. Finally, the pirate ships began to retreat. Their formations broke as human tactics and coordination proved too strong. The convoy had survived with minimal damage, and Ryan's team returned to the Sol Meridian victorious but exhausted. Back in the hangar, Ryan landed the Valor Wing and immediately checked on every pilot. He asked about injuries, fuel levels, and ship status. Then he guided the convoy ships to safe docking points, ensuring every supply vessel was unharmed. Tira approached him cautiously. "Ryan, I saw everything. You were incredible. How do you remain so calm in such chaos?" Ryan looked at her, his gray eyes steady. Calm is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to act despite it. Humans feel fear, but we do not allow it to paralyze us. We acknowledge it and move forward anyway. She nodded slowly. "So that is what makes humans strong?" "Strength is not just physical," he said. "It is the ability to endure, to think clearly, and to act when others would give up. That is what humans have mastered over centuries. We survive because we refuse to quit, and we fight because others depend on us." Tira felt a deep sense of understanding. She had admired Ryan before, but now she understood why humans were respected across the galaxy. It was not their ships, not their weapons, and not their numbers. It was their spirit, their ability to keep moving when everything seemed lost. "Can I try?" she asked softly. "Can I help with the next mission?" Ryan studied her for a moment. "Observation is important. Action is another. If you want to act, you must first understand what you are doing. Courage without preparation can be dangerous." Tira nodded. "I want to learn. I want to understand courage the way humans do." He gave a faint smile. "Then start with small actions. Help your team. Learn their strengths. Use what you see to make better decisions. That is how humans grow." For the next few days, Tira followed Ryan on multiple missions. She watched him coordinate with other pilots, communicate with allied fleets, and make decisions in real time. Every movement, every instruction, every calm choice taught her something new. She saw humans act with strategy but also with heart. They fought not for glory but for duty, for others and for ideals. One evening, after a long day of missions, Tira and Ryan returned to the Sol Meridian. The crew was tired but satisfied. Ryan's quarters awaited him, and Tira lingered in the hallway, unsure whether to follow. Ryan noticed her hesitation. "Come in," he said calmly. "There is something you need to understand beyond combat." Tira entered the quarters carefully. Ryan gestured toward the small table where 2 drinks rested. He sat, and she followed suit, sitting across from him. "Courage is not only on the battlefield," he said softly. "It is in how you live. It is in honesty, in helping others, in standing up when it is easier to remain silent. Courage is in small choices as much as large ones." Tira listened intently. "So humans inspire not just by fighting but by living?" Ryan nodded. "Yes, humans make mistakes. We fail, we grieve, but we continue. That is what others learn from us. That is why humans are admired across the galaxy. Not because we are perfect, but because we keep moving forward." Tira felt her admiration deepen. She had thought courage was only in battle, but now she understood its wider meaning. Courage was the essence of humanity. It was a light that could guide others even in the darkest times. For the first time, she did not see Ryan as a distant hero. She saw him as a teacher. She saw the humanity behind the legend. She realized that learning from him meant more than observing his actions. It meant understanding the principles he lived by: honesty, persistence, care, and courage. Ryan stood and walked toward the small window, gazing at the stars. "Every person you meet carries lessons. Some teach by words, some by actions. Humans teach by both. That is what makes us special." Tira stood beside him, gazing at the stars. She understood now that her journey had only begun. She could admire heroes, but true growth came from learning, from understanding, and from applying what she learned. That night, as the stars of the Union sector stretched endlessly outside the Sol Meridian, Tira made a promise to herself. She would not just observe. She would act. She would live with courage. She would carry the lessons of humanity wherever she went. Ryan did not ask her to be a hero. He did not demand admiration. He simply showed her what courage and strength could look like when paired with care, responsibility, and persistence. That was a lesson Tira would never forget. And in that moment, she knew she had crossed a new threshold. She had moved from fangirl to student. She had moved from curiosity to understanding. She had moved closer to the truth of humanity, the reason they could stand tall, inspire others, and survive when others failed. The stars outside shimmered, reflecting in her golden eyes. She smiled quietly, knowing that the next missions, the next challenges, and the next lessons would be hers to face. She was ready.